Hello, and thank you for stopping by yet another edition of the Massachusetts Whiskey Reviews. My name is Thomas Metal 75, and this is your Massachusetts Whiskey Review today. And yesterday I took a trip to South Attleboro, Massachusetts, on the way into the state of Rhode Island, and found this bottle of bourbon you see at the top of the screen for the bottom of the screen here for the subject of the video, the title of the video. And I was kind of floored by that, because we never get this bottle, apparently until recently. So this is great to see. It is a bottled and bond whiskey, a bottled and bond Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, the Heaven Hill bottled and bond, everybody. Nice. Awesome. And just so we're completely clear about what a bottled and bond bourbon is in this country, it was a law that was passed in 1897, the Bottled and Bond Act of 1897, that states a couple of things legally that's required by the U.S. government here. It's got to be at least, the bourbon has to be at least 100 proof, aged a minimum of 4 years, in a government bonded warehouse during one distillation seasoning. I guess there's January through June, and then, which is one season, and the other season is July through December. At one distillery. And it has to list, it must bear the name of the distilled spirits plant, the DSP, or if that's different, then the DSP number of the bottling facility has to be labeled. I did not know that about the distilled spirits plant, the DSP, so that's pretty good. Nice. And today, as I look through the Heaven Hill Distillery's bottled and bond bourbon here, which was introduced in 1939, I will look at this. Shout out to East Coast Liquor Reviews on YouTube. Go check him out. I'll put him in the description below to his YouTube channel. He does every Monday, maybe around 8 to 8:30 Eastern Boston, New York time, whiskey and bourbon reviews on a panel, and he has come up with the criteria on how to rate these bourbons and whiskeys, which I will be using today on a 100-point scale. 10 points goes to looks and aesthetics. Up to 10 points will go to looks and aesthetics. Aroma can have up to 20 points. Flavor and mouthfeel also up to 20 points. Finish, another 20 points. And to round out the last 10 points will be the value. Now that's value to you, really, at the end of the day. So let's take a look at the bottle. It says bottled and bond under U.S. government supervision, Heaven Hill, family owned since 1935. And it does say 100 proof, 50% alcohol by volume, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. And they go above and beyond. This bourbon is 7 years old. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Distilled by Heaven Hill Distillery, DSP, Kentucky, DSP KY1, Louisville, Kentucky. Bottled by Heaven Hill Distilling, DSP KY31, which is located in Bardstown, Kentucky. The best of the great Kentucky bourbons. Let's read, shall we? This Kentucky bourbon pays tribute to the earliest days of the distillery's history when, in 1939, it released Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond. The namesake brand quickly became the #1 selling bourbon whiskey in the state of Kentucky. Still today, the craftsmanship poured into this bottle by the same founding family meets exacting standards set forth in the Bottled and Bond Act of 1897. This historic offering reflects on the company founders' firm belief it takes patience and perseverance to make something of great quality. HeavenHillDistillery.com, everybody. All right, as you can see, I've not cracked open this since I bought it, so we're going to do a neck pour. All right. Nice. Cool. Very excited for this bourbon. Again, I haven't seen it in Massachusetts or even Rhode Island for that matter, so very cool to finally get this. Oh my god. Stubborn packaging. There we go. Nice. Let's do a crack. Ooh. And it's a real cork. MSRP around $50. That's what I bought the bottle for. We're going to add some water to it as well during the course of the review, as I always do. And we shall see how the bourbon does. All right. Now, looks and aesthetics, 10 points. They get lumped up into how the bourbon looks, how the whiskey looks, and how the bottling looks. Bottled and bond should have all the... Did I get this wet? Yes, I got the bottle. Got the label wet. Yeah, woohoo. Anyways, wet label. The labeling on a bottle and bond should get some really good points because they're legally supposed to tell you some good information. I love how it tells you it's 7 years. You don't have to go and find out on the website or anywhere online to figure that out. They tell you it's 100 proof, 50%. They give you some good information on the back of the bottle. They tell you the DSP numbers. They don't tell you mash bill, nor does the website, so I have no idea. And I didn't go on breakingbourbon.com website to find out. All right, nice copper color. A darker copper, maybe more like a dark copper penny. It's got some nice reddish kind of tinges to it, but it's definitely a nice dark copper color. Do we have some legs? I think we got some legs. Nice. So the whole presentation, I will give an 8. I'll give 8 points. Great. Calculator when I need it. All right, let's go to the Aroma, which is a total of 20 points. So the Aroma is classic bourbon to a T. Caramel, toffee, vanillas, cinnamon notes, a touch of a spicy note to it, getting the oak influence. It's very soft in the alcohol department. It's very approachable nose. I can almost stick my nose into it fully and not get too swept away by the alcohol. This is a really pleasant nose. Maybe some vanilla creams and custards. Maybe also slight citrus. I'm getting some of a bready note. Maybe there's a little bit of 10% or so, I don't know, of a barley. Orchard fruits. Not orchard fruit. I don't know. Orchard and a citrusy note. A touch of a rye spice. I like that nose. I like that aroma. This is... I almost could give it 20 points. There's not a depth, but there is nice flavors, sans all of the alcohol notes from 50%. So I'm gonna be real generous to that. I'm going to give that an 18. And the flavor. We may come back around and update the notes once I add some water and really define this. But let's do the flavor finally. Cheers, everybody. Ooh. Nice. The 100%, you get a little of the Kentucky hug. The 100%, 100 proof, is a little jarring if it's your first time here with 100 proof. I'd say it's very soft on the 100 proof, 50%. But the flavors are just like the aromas, where it's a classic bourbon note to a T. Caramel, vanilla, sweetness. Some cinnamons, some baking spices. I'm getting the corn sweetness. You definitely tell this is bourbon with corn. But nothing like a corn whiskey over 80% of the mash bill being corn. Not quite like that. I am getting some of the slight citrusy notes in there. a doughy or crusty pie thing, or like a freshly baked bread kind of a note. The sweetness, a brown, not brown sugar, more like a glazed donut kind of a vanilla frosting thing. I'm really liking that so far. The feeling of it, I'll talk about that in the mouthfeel, but the feeling of alcohol is minute, really. If we look at the grand scheme of it being 100 proof, this is a super soft 50%. I really like the flavors. This is really, you want to know what a bourbon tastes like. This is pretty spot the frig on. What should I give that for flavor points here? I kind of really want to be high in judgment on this flavor. There's a little bit of a dusty corn element to it that could be rounded out a little bit. A slight nuttiness I just detected there too. I'm going to go 17 on that. I think they rounded out the sweetness a little better from that dusty, corny thing, or earthy note, whatever you want to call that, would be even better. But 17 is a good rating. Let's talk about that mouthfeel, shall we? Still getting that dusty corn note there. Herbal minty notes too. Now I'm getting that. It's evolving a little bit in the glass. I like that. It's not super full. 50%, 100 proof bourbon. It's not intensely slapping you around in the mouthfeel, but there is a slight creamy texture to it. I'm getting some oily notes to it. It's nice and mouth coating, not like a real barrel strength or full proof bourbon. If I don't force the bourbon to the bottom palate, I need to sip it up this way. I only get it coating the top of the mouth, so that's kind of disappointing a little bit. It's not the most creamy, oily bourbon, but it has some nice medium weight to it. So, I don't know, 16. And the finish of the bourbon. At this point right now, I'm getting left with a lot of the rye kind of a spice. A cinnamon and a spicy note. That substantially lingers. It's starting to dry at this point. So, very nice. It's not the most luxurious, long, rapidly changing element to the whiskey, the finish? No. Yeah, definitely spice. And maybe that citrus note. And some of the sugary sweetness before it dries. The sugary sweetness and the spice notes really sticking around, which might make it a good old-fashioned bourbon. Not crazy by any regards, but I like it. I'll give it a 15. And this bad boy for value clocks in at $50. I feel like I'm getting basically a really well-aged bourbon. I didn't really mention that, but this is zero rough edges. Besides, does your palate like how the sweetness and the corn plays in this? And do you like that corn, sweetness, and spice at the end of the palate? But there's enough bready malt or a barley, maybe that's the word I'm looking for, not malt, barley to play in there. I think there is. So for the flavors you're getting for $50, I think this is crazy value. I don't think there's a lot of bourbons, even at $50 that match to this, really. for my liking. But the Scotch Test Dummies on YouTube said that they used to be able to find a bottle for $12.95, and now this has gone to $50 friggin' dollars. I don't know where they went with that MSRP all of a sudden. So out of 10 points, I mean, I like the presentation, I like the package, I like the flavors, I like the aged texture and taste to the beer, the aged texture. I like the aged flavors to the beer, to the bourbon, not beer. I do wish it was in the $40 to $50 range. And that sip, see that finish is changing. I'm going to go up to a 16 maybe. I'm getting more woody tannic notes there. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10 for the value. I don't mind buying this a couple times throughout the year. We're getting long-winded in the review. Let's do a little bit of water and see what that does. I like 2 straws to start. Oh, vanilla creams come out now. Vanilla creams and a spicy element. And not, I mean, the orangey note that I talk about is not super strong, but it's in there. With the herbal notes. So I'm going to leave that at I'll leave that at an 18. It probably brought out more of a baking spice and vanilla note. I'll leave that at an 18. You might think you were drinking a wheated bourbon with this flavor at this point. Lots of herbal notes now. Citrus notes pop out, too. Vanillas. Oh, there's some Werther's Original Caramel. Ooh. I did like that. I liked how the spicy element and some of the 7-year-old age in that barrel played a little bit more when it was neat. But I liked how that just gave me a Werther's Original. Stay at 17. Mouthfeel. There's a toffee element in there too. I like that. Mouthfeel got a little tiny bit thin. It's finishing with the toffees now. I'm going to leave it at 16 for them. I'm going to leave it where it is. At 16 points for the finish and the mouthfeel. And I'll leave it at 7 points. So we have a grand total of, on the calculator, we have a combined score of an 82 out of 100. Combined with the water additions, it is still an 82 out of 100 for the Heaven Hills Bottled in Bond. And I would totally, ridiculously, this rating scale, thank you East Coast Liquor Reviews, is going to be really paramount to keeping us focused as whiskey style reviewers. So this is still this is a high recommendation. If you want to know what a bourbon whiskey tastes like, this is an awesome place to start. Not over the top expensive. 50 is a little rough pill to swallow for some folks, I get it. And if you've never had a bottled in bond or a higher proof bourbon or any kind of a whiskey, oh man, fantastic place to start. We're at the 20-minute mark here, and we got an 82 out of 100 for the Evan Williams. Well, Heaven Hill, if you didn't know, makes Evan Williams, and they make Berheim wheat whiskey. What else? Elijah Craig, the Parker's Heritage, the Mellow Corn whiskey. I digress. 82 out of 100 for the Heaven Hill Bottled in Bond. That feels like a high recommendation. Until next time, keep tasting those great whiskeys. Cheers. I will see you soon. Bye.